A beautiful and poignant story. Arthur Finch, at 67, had come to believe that love was a quiet thing, a memory you polished in the evenings like a favorite stone. It wasn't the fiery, consuming passion of youth, but a steady warmth, a silent conversation with a ghost. Since Eleanor's passing 3 years prior, his days had become a sequence of habits, each one a small monument to their life together. He'd water the hydrangeas she'd planted, dust the spine of her favorite poetry book, and take his tea at precisely 4 o'clock, the hour she used to return from her pottery class. His coastal town, a place of salt-sprayed cottages and gulls crying out like lost souls, was a perfect place for such a solitary existence. The sea was a constant companion, its rhythm a low, mournful hum that matched the quiet tempo of his heart. Yet his solitude was not absolute. Across the picket fence, in the cottage with a riot of wisteria, lived a distraction, a joyful cacophony of color and light named Eleanor. Eleanor was a whirlwind of 50, an artist whose canvases were as vibrant and wild as her laugh. She saw him as a kind of anchor, a repository of local history and quiet wisdom. "Arthur," she'd say, her voice bright as a splash of paint, "you know everything. Tell me about the fisherman who used to live here. I want to paint his soul." He would smile, a small private thing, and tell her stories. He'd describe the texture of the old lighthouse keeper's coat, the way the fog used to swallow the town whole, and the taste of salt water on the wind. He knew, with a certainty that was both a comfort and a deep ache, that she saw him as a friend, a wise, harmless old man. He was the gentle current in her stormy sea of a life, a steadfast rock in her ever-shifting world. And he was content with that, or so he told himself. His love for her was like the deepest part of the ocean, unseen and unexplored, a secret he kept tucked away in the quietest corners of his heart. It was a bittersweet thing, this unrequited love. It was the warmth of a fire you couldn't touch, the light of a star you could only admire from a distance. But in its own way, it was also a new meaning, a reason to get up each morning and water the hydrangeas, to be there when she needed a story, to feel, however quietly, alive. The evening sun cast long shadows across his garden. He sat on the porch, a cup of lukewarm tea in his hand, and watched Eleanor through the haze of a memory and a secret hope. She was in her garden, her hand stained with paint, a smear of cerulean blue on her cheek. She was humming, a tune he couldn't place, and the sound was like a melody he had forgotten he needed. He thought about telling her, about confessing the ridiculous, beautiful truth. But the moment passed, as moments often do, and he was left with the quiet dignity of his silence. The sea hummed its low song, the gulls cried out, and Arthur Finch, the widower librarian, held his secret like a precious, fragile bird in his heart. Autumn arrived with a gentle sigh, painting the coastal town in shades of amber and rust. For Arthur, the changing seasons were a metronome, marking time in the small, significant events of his life. He found solace in the routine, the way the morning light slanted through the kitchen window, the familiar weight of a book in his hand, the predictable ebb and flow of the tide. But these days, the rhythm was punctuated by Eleanor. She had begun leaving small gifts on his doorstep, a crooked seashell she'd found on her morning walk, a small, vibrant watercolor of a solitary gull, or a jar of homemade jam. He would find them in the mornings, their presence a small, quiet shock of joy. They were tokens of her affection, small gestures of a friendship he cherished with a fierce and silent intensity. He wanted to tell her how much they meant to him, how each tiny gift was a sunbeam in his quiet life, but the words felt too large, too heavy with the weight of his unsaid feelings. One afternoon, he found her sitting on her porch, staring out at the turbulent sea, a sketchbook open on her lap. She looked thoughtful, her usual bright energy subdued. He hesitated for a moment, then walked over, his footsteps muffled by the fallen leaves. "The sea's angry today," he said, his voice a low rumble. She looked up, a faint smile gracing her lips. "It's magnificent, isn't it? All that power and fury." She patted the spot next to her, and he sat down, the old wicker chair groaning in protest. I'm trying to capture it, she continued. The feeling of it. The chaos and the peace all at once. He watched her as she sketched, her hand moving with a fluid grace he found mesmerizing. He saw her through the lens of his affection, every line and shadow a testament to his feelings. You capture it all, he said quietly, the soul of everything. She laughed, a short, self-deprecating sound. Oh, Arthur, you're too kind. I'm just a messy artist trying to make sense of the world. He wanted to tell her that she was his world, that his days were now divided into moments with her and moments without. But the words remained locked inside him, a secret he guarded with the careful dignity of a man who had already lost so much. He realized then that perhaps his love was not meant to be a grand declaration. It was enough to be a quiet observer, to be her steadfast friend, to be a part of her world in any way he could. It was enough to sit beside her, watching the sea, a silent testament to a love that asked for nothing in return. This unrequited love wasn't a tragedy, he realized, but a quiet act of grace, a profound and tender way of staying connected to life. It was a testament to his own resilience, a subtle and beautiful way of finding new meaning after loss. Winter wrapped the town in a cloak of gray and white, the sea turning a steely, unforgiving hue. The quiet of the season deepened Arthur's solitude, but it was no longer an empty silence. Now it was a space filled with the memory of Alara's laugh, the image of her paint-stained hands, and the warmth of the small gifts she left on his porch. Their friendship had settled into a comfortable rhythm of shared silences and easy conversation, each exchange a small, secret gift to his heart. He often found himself thinking of their conversations, replaying her words in his mind like a favorite song. The way her eyes would light up when she talked about a new painting, or the genuine concern in her voice when she asked about his health. He knew she cared for him, but it was the care of a daughter for a father, of a friend for a mentor. It was a kind of love, but not the one he yearned for. And yet, he had found a strange kind of peace in this. His feelings were his own, a garden he tended in secret, the blossoms only for him to see. One blustery afternoon, as the wind howled around his cottage, Elara knocked on his door, her cheeks flushed with the cold. She held a large, wrapped canvas. "Arthur," she said, her voice breathless, "I want you to have this. It's for you." He took the canvas, his hands trembling slightly, and set it on the table. He carefully peeled away the paper, his heart thrumming in his chest. It was a painting of his garden in the summer, the riot of his hydrangeas, a vivid blue against the deep green of the foliage. But it wasn't just his garden. It was his garden as seen through her eyes. There was a quiet dignity to the composition, a sense of deep, abiding peace. In the foreground, partially hidden by the leaves, was a small, smooth stone, so like the ones he would polish in the evening. "It's beautiful, Elara," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. She smiled, a soft, understanding look in her eyes. "It's how I see you, Arthur. A quiet strength, a hidden beauty. You're the anchor to this place, to me. You remind me of everything that is solid and good in the world." His throat tightened. He wanted to tell her that she was his anchor, that she was the one who had brought color back into his life. He wanted to confess his ridiculous, profound love for her. But he couldn't. The moment was too fragile, too perfect in its quiet grace. To speak would be to shatter the delicate equilibrium of their friendship, to demand a return on a love he had long ago decided was a gift, not a transaction. He simply looked at the painting, a silent tear tracing a path down his weathered cheek. He knew then that this was enough. This was his reward. To be seen, truly seen by the person he loved, even if she saw him as a friend. It was not the love he had hoped for, but it was a love nonetheless, and it filled the quiet corners of his heart with a warm, steady light. The winter deepens, its chill seeping into the old bones of the town and into Arthur's. He now spends his days gazing at the painting Elara gave him, a constant silent presence on his living room wall. It is a portal to summer, a reminder of the quiet joy that lives beneath the surface of his solitary life. He often finds himself standing before it, tracing the painted lines of the hydrangeas with his eyes, a feeling of deep gratitude washing over him. It's not a tumultuous, dizzying feeling like the one he once had for Eleanor, but a quiet, steady burn. One afternoon, a sharp, insistent rapping at his door jolts him from his reverie. It's Elara, her face pale, a tear-streaked canvas clutched to her chest. She doesn't wait for him to invite her in. She rushes past him, collapsing onto his worn armchair, the canvas falling to the floor. "It's a disaster," she chokes out, her voice raw. "A complete and utter failure." Arthur sits across from her, his heart aching at her distress. He says nothing, just waits. He knows that sometimes all a person needs is a quiet presence, a space to simply be. After a long moment, she explains that she was preparing a series of new paintings for a gallery exhibit, her biggest show yet. The paintings were good, she says, perhaps the best she'd ever done. But the final piece, the one that was supposed to tie the entire collection together, was a disaster. It was flat, lifeless, and without the spark of her usual work. "I tried everything, Arthur," she says, a tear rolling down her cheek. "I worked all night, all morning. But I couldn't find the soul in it. Feel like a fraud. I feel empty." He looks at her, truly seeing her for the first time in a way that is not filtered through his love. He sees her vulnerability, her fear, her humanity. He thinks of the moments he felt the same way after Eleanor passed, the feeling of being hollowed out, as though the world had stolen all the color from his life. "Look at the painting I gave you," she says, her voice barely a whisper. "Tell me what you see." He turns to look at the painting of his garden. "I see light," he says, his voice a low, comforting hum. "I see a deep and abiding peace. I see a quiet strength, a hidden beauty." He turns back to her, his gaze steady. "Elara, you can't see the soul in your own work because you are the soul. You pour yourself into every canvas, every brushstroke. Sometimes you get so close to the fire that you can't see its warmth. But I can. I see it every single day. The world sees it in your art. I see it in you." She looks at him, her eyes wide with a mixture of surprise and profound relief. And in that moment, in the quiet of his living room, a different kind of connection forms between them, a bond forged not of unrequited love but of shared humanity, of two souls finding a way to heal each other. It is not the passionate love he had for Eleanor, nor the unrequited love he held for Elara, but a new, deeper kind of bond. It is a love born of friendship, acceptance, and a shared understanding of what it means to be alive and human. He knows without a doubt that this too is enough. The gallery exhibit was a quiet success. Elara's work, imbued with a newfound depth and a melancholic beauty, received glowing reviews. She had painted a final piece for the series, one she called Anchor. It was a portrait of a lighthouse against a stormy sea, its light a steady, unwavering beacon against the turbulent waves. Arthur stood before it, his heart swelling with a quiet pride. He knew, with a certainty that hummed in his bones, that she had painted him. It was her way of acknowledging the light he had become for her, a silent conversation they would forever share. Life, for Arthur, had settled into a new and comfortable rhythm. The ache of his solitude had been replaced by a gentle hum of contentment. He still missed Eleanor, a quiet, constant presence in his heart, but his days were no longer defined by her absence. They were filled with the small, beautiful things, the warmth of the morning sun on his face, the taste of a good cup of tea, and the laughter that now, more often than not, drifted across the fence from Elara's cottage. One crisp afternoon, as he was trimming his hydrangeas, Elara walked over, a thermos of something warm in her hands. She poured him a cup, the steam rising in the cold air. "You know," she said, her voice soft, "I was a bit—" He looked at her, his gaze steady. "We all get lost sometimes," he said. "But you," she continued, "you were like a quiet, beautiful compass. You reminded me that it's okay to be still, to find beauty in the quiet things. You taught me that you don't have to roar to be strong." He smiled, a small, genuine thing that reached his eyes. "And you, Elara," he said. "You reminded me that it's okay to find new light. To accept that a life can hold both storms and sunshine, and that both can be beautiful." In the quiet of the garden, amidst the dormant hydrangeas and the fallen leaves, they stood together. It was not the dramatic love story of a novel, no grand confessions or passionate embraces. It was something quieter, something deeper. It was a love born of mutual respect and profound understanding, a love that transcended labels and expectations. Arthur had accepted that his love for Elara would never be reciprocated in the way he had once dreamed. But it had grown into something else, something richer and more fulfilling. He had found a new kind of meaning in his twilight years, a new way to connect with the world and a new way to love. And as he sipped his tea, the warmth spreading through his hands, he knew that the bittersweet flavor of his experiences had finally settled into a quiet, profound sweetness. Arthur's life had always been a series of seasons, each one a testament to change and resilience. Now, with the first buds of spring, a new one was beginning. The hydrangeas, once dormant, showed tiny hints of green, a promise of the summer to come. His routine remained a cherished constant, but it was now a melody with a richer harmony. He would spend his mornings in his garden, his afternoons with a book, and his evenings watching the sunset, a quiet contentment settling over him. Elara's presence in his life had deepened into something he could never have anticipated. They were not lovers, but a different kind of pair, two souls who understood the silent language of loss and the quiet victory of finding new meaning. Their friendship was a testament to the idea that love could take on many forms, and not all of them needed to be grand or romantic to be profound. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon in a blaze of orange and purple, Elara joined him on his porch. They sat in a comfortable silence, watching the spectacle unfold. "I've been thinking about the future," Elara said, her voice a soft murmur. "My gallery show went so well, and I have a new project. It's a series of paintings about the dignity of aging, the beauty of a life lived well." He looked at her, his heart filled with a deep sense of pride. "That's wonderful, Elara. I was hoping you would be my muse," she said, turning to him, her eyes reflecting the twilight. "I want to paint you, Arthur. Not just a likeness but your spirit. The wisdom in your eyes, the kindness in your hands, the resilience that lives in your bones. I want to capture the beauty I see in you." Arthur was stunned. The thought of being seen so completely, so tenderly, was almost overwhelming. For so long he had lived in the shadows of his own grief and unrequited feelings, but here was Elara, a splash of vibrant life, asking to capture his very essence. It was an honor, a gift beyond measure. He looked at the sea, its dark surface mirroring the vastness of his life. He had spent so many years waiting for the sea of his heart to calm, to find a way to navigate the turbulent waters of loss and love. Now, here he was, an old lighthouse keeper, a man who had weathered the storms and found a new purpose. "I would be honored," he said, his voice a low, steady sound. "More than you know." He knew then that his story was far from over. It was not a grand romance, but a testament to the quiet dignity of a life well lived. It was a story about a widower who found a new kind of love in a quiet coastal town, a love that was a balm to his lonely heart and a beacon of hope in the twilight of his life. It was a story that proved that even when the love you feel is unrequited, it can still be the most beautiful and rewarding thing in the world. The spring unfolded in a gentle rhythm of sittings and quiet conversations. Elara set up her easel in Arthur's living room, the space now a silent workshop where she sought to capture his essence. He would sit by the window, a book in his hand, while she worked, her intense gaze sweeping over his face. His hands, the subtle curve of his spine. The air was often thick with a productive silence, broken only by the soft scratching of charcoal on canvas and the distant cry of gulls. The process of being her muse was an unexpected and profound experience for Arthur. For so long, he had felt like an observer of his own life, a quiet figure in the background. Now he was the subject, the center of her focus, and it was a strange, humbling feeling. He found himself thinking about his life in a new light, not as a series of losses, but as a collection of moments that had shaped him into the person he was today. He thought of Eleanor, of the life they had built together, and for the first time, his love for her felt less like a grief and more like a foundation. One afternoon, as a soft rain fell against the windowpane, Eleanor lowered her brush. "I think I've got it," she said, her voice filled with a quiet satisfaction. Arthur walked over to the easel, his heart thrumming. The painting was not a photograph. It was a masterpiece of feeling and form. The canvas held the lines of his face, yes, but also the stories etched within them. It captured the wisdom in his eyes, the gentle strength in his hands, and the quiet dignity of a man who had accepted his life's course with grace. It was a portrait of a life lived, a beautiful testament to a man who had found new meaning after loss. He looked at the painting, then back at Eleanor, his eyes filled with a gratitude so deep it was almost painful. He had loved her in a way she could not return, but in this moment, looking at the canvas, he knew she loved him in her own way. A love of understanding, of appreciation, of seeing his true self and honoring it with her art. "It's magnificent, Eleanor," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You've captured my soul." She smiled, a soft, genuine smile that lit up her entire face. "Your soul was always there, Arthur," she said. In the silence that followed, a new chapter began. Arthur's unrequited love for Eleanor had not been a dead end, but a quiet, beautiful detour. It had led him not to a new romantic love, but to a deeper understanding of himself, and to a friendship that was a form of love all its own. His heart, once a quiet room haunted by the past, was now a home filled with the warmth of a new and profound connection. The bittersweetness of his experiences had given way to a quiet, peaceful, and profound joy. The spring passed, and with it came the gentle warmth of summer. Eleanor's portrait of Arthur, now titled The Quiet Anchor, became the centerpiece of her new gallery show. It was a resounding success, a testament to her artistic vision and her deep understanding of her subject. Arthur, who had always preferred to remain in the shadows, found himself in the public eye, a quiet celebrity in his small town. People would stop him on the street, their eyes filled with a new kind of recognition. They didn't see a lonely widower anymore. They saw the man from the painting, a symbol of dignity, wisdom, and quiet resilience. This newfound attention, while initially uncomfortable, became a source of unexpected joy. It forced him out of his shell, pushing him to engage with his community in ways he hadn't since Eleanor's death. He found himself sharing stories with strangers, his voice no longer a low murmur but a steady, confident hum. Eleanor's friendship remained the anchor of this new life. She would still come over for tea, and they would talk for hours about art, life, and the strange, beautiful turns their lives had taken. The unrequited love he once felt had softened into a profound and abiding affection. It was a love that had transformed him, leading him not to a romantic partner but to a richer, more meaningful existence. One evening, as the sun set over the sea, painting the sky in a blaze of orange and pink, Eleanor came to his porch, a small, wrapped gift in her hands. "I have something for you," she said, her voice soft. "It's a little something I made." Arthur unwrapped the gift to find a small, beautifully crafted wooden compass. It was old and worn, its brass gleaming with a soft patina. The needle, however, was gone. "The needle is gone," he said, turning the compass over in his hands. "I know," she said, her eyes shining in the fading light. "It's a reminder that we don't always know where we're going. But we have to keep moving forward anyway. You taught me that, Arthur. You taught me that it's okay to be lost sometimes, as long as you have an anchor." He looked at her, his heart full. He had spent so long navigating the turbulent seas of grief and unrequited love, but he had finally found his way home. Not to a person but to a feeling. The feeling of being whole, of being seen, and of being enough. The compass, empty of its needle, was a perfect metaphor for his life. It was a symbol of his journey, a testament to the fact that his path, while unexpected, had led him to a place of profound peace and quiet contentment. He knew then that his love for Eleanor had not been a tragedy, but a quiet, beautiful miracle, a love that had not just survived, but had blossomed into a new and profound form of grace.